What's up, everybody? Welcome to Teen Life Group today. We are going to continue our study in the book of Proverbs. The title of our study has been Don't Be a Fool, and we've looked at just a bunch of different ways that we can not be fools, and we've looked at ways to where we can learn to be wise and listen to wise people. And so today we're going to look at two verses, Proverbs 18, verse 6 and 7, and you'll see why in just a second. But the title of our lesson for today is Down for the Count, okay? And so the fool brings a lot of trouble onto himself, and those things are revealed and manifested and brought about by his words. So we're going to take a look at a fool in the way that he speaks today and see how he brings himself out for a knockout. He knocks himself out, so to speak. And so we're going to be in, again, Proverbs 18, verse number 6. So you guys look up at the screen right here, and I'll put both verses up. It says, "A fool's lips bring strife, and his mouth invites a beating. A fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are the snare of his soul." And so you see we got some of the New American Standard mixed in with the ESV there today. Couple things I want to talk about here. First of all, is that you'll see that these two verses are very similar in what they're saying, and there's kind of this parallelism between 6 and 7. They're not saying the exact same thing, but they're saying very similar things. And even in verse 6, it says a fool's lips and then his mouth, and then verse 7, a fool's mouth and then his lips. And so, I think it's very fitting for us to deal with these things together today. There are really four things that you see there, and we're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about strife, this beating. We're going to talk about ruin and the snare that we see. Before we get into our outline today, we need to understand some things. Is that this is not talking about foolish talk, and you'd be like, it looks like that's what it's talking about. My challenge for you today is not that you would cease from talking foolishly, or that you wouldn't be involved in foolish talk. Okay, the proverb here is not addressing how wrong the talk is. How it's addressing the fact that this person is a fool, and because they are a fool, they speak foolishly. So we're going to talk, again, this fits right with the theme of our study, is don't be a fool. That is the point of this proverb. If you are a fool, then your mouth will reveal that you are foolish, and you'll pay the price for that. So the way a fool talks is going to bring trouble on himself, okay? His foolish talk reveals that he is a fool. And so, if your mouth is constantly getting you into trouble, it's not that you need to stop speaking foolishly. You need to assess, am I a fool? And if so, then that is the heart of the problem, is that you're speaking foolishly because you're a fool. And you need to be wise instead. A wise person does not speak foolishly. And so how do you do that? You get wisdom, right? The book of Proverbs tells us how to get wisdom. So this is not talking about, hey, you don't need to talk like a fool. This is, you don't need to be a fool. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you. So really just 2 points today for down for the count. All right. Number one is this. When fools talk, they get in trouble. Okay. I'm going to try to apply this as we go through this today. A little bit different of a setup. I'm not really going to go through and uncover the meaning like we've done and undo those words. We're just going to kind of do all that as we go. But whenever fools talk, they get in trouble. Okay. Look back at verse 6. A fool's lips bring strife, and his mouth invites a beating. Or the New American Standard says, his mouth calls for blows, all right, like being punched, okay? Thus, the whole kind of boxing theme associated with the video today. But this word strife, okay, this is someone who quarrels, who has contention. This is someone that gets in arguments, okay? And so when a fool talks, they get in trouble, they get in arguments, okay? This can be maybe heated words, or maybe not so heated, but they're all when they speak. The proverb literally says that strife comes with them. This is a lot like verse number 3. For those of you who watched the Shame Train video, what happens? A wicked person, when they come, other things come with them. Okay? Same thing here. When a fool speaks, what comes with that? Strife, contention, quarreling, stirring up trouble with their words. I can remember being in high school and even middle school. And this, I don't know why, this always happened with science teachers, all right? In middle school and high school, different teacher, they always had this problem. I don't know what it is. But I can remember, and it wasn't every day, but I can remember sitting in class as a 7th grader, as a junior in high school, listening to my teachers, my science teachers. And they would either get on to a kid, or they would get in trouble somehow doing something. And instead of I was at a public high school, okay? Instead of the kid, just responding the right way and either straighten up or stopping what they were doing or whatever, I can remember kids getting into just harsh verbal arguments with these guys, these teachers. And I remember just sitting there thinking, dude, what are you doing? It's like, you're not just disagreeing with, and they're not disagreeing on what the teacher's talking about. They're mad about something that the teacher said to them, or mad about them getting in trouble somehow, or something like that. And I can remember kids yelling at their teacher. And I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, what are you doing? That's foolish. And it's like, the next day we come to school, and they're not in class. For like the next 2 or 3 days, they're not in class, okay? And so they got into some serious trouble. And what is that? That's foolishness. That's foolish talk. Now, did that student need to stop talking foolishly? Yeah, but that student needed to stop being a fool, all right? And so that's kind of what this is talking about. A fool's lips, when they talk, they get in trouble. They get in arguments. Are you someone who gets in arguments a lot? And it's like, it doesn't matter who it is. You get in arguments with your brothers and sisters. You get in arguments with your mom and dad. You get in arguments with somebody in Walmart. I mean, it's just, the problem is not the other people. The problem is probably you. And so you need to watch your words. And let me tell you something, guys. If you're getting in arguments with your parents, you need to be extremely careful. God takes that extremely seriously. And you need to be very careful about how you talk to other people, but especially your parents. And so I hope that you're not someone who is being a fool and talking back and arguing with your parents. All right. So again, hey, don't be a fool. All right. What does a fool do? They talk foolishly. What happens? They get in trouble. They bring strife. They bring quarrels when they open their mouth. So we don't need to be fools. Okay. So secondly, here, not only do they get in arguments, but they get punished. All right. So again, they're getting in trouble. They get punished. Look at the end of verse number 6. And his mouth invites a beating. I like how the ESV said that. It's very clear, and it's very accurate to the text. They really brought that out really well. When a fool opens his mouth, he is inviting someone to beat him up, is literally what it means. To call for blows, I mean, you're asking to get punched. You're asking to get knocked out. Okay? And so now, obviously, hopefully you're not out punching people or getting punched and beat up and stuff. But back in this day, in biblical times, they would take someone out and publicly beat them. They would flog them. And they did that in the Old Testament days. They did it in the New Testament days. And if you did the right thing, or even said the right thing to the wrong person, you could catch a public beating for what you said. But look at this. This word for beating here, or the New American Standard, the word for blows, it comes from a word that means to smite, to strike, to break down, or to beat down. And so a fool, what are they doing? They're getting punished because of the words that they're using. They're not wise at all. This happened to my brother, okay, when we were when we were teenagers, and he said something to somebody who was bigger than him. He said something to someone who was stronger than him, and he said something to someone that could lay him out, and that was his big brother. Okay, I was a senior in high school, and I was dating Miss Lauren, and so I should have been a lot more mature than I was, but brothers fight from time to time, and we do foolish things. Well, I remember we were in my backyard, and Lauren was over at the house. Actually, we had just came back from somewhere. We were coming home to my house, and my brother TJ was upset about something. I don't know what it was. We may have went to get something to eat and didn't get him something to eat or something. It was something trivial, just not a big deal. And he blew off the handle. I mean, he got so mad at me. And in order to show how mad he was, he decided to mouth off at my girlfriend, all right, my future wife. Okay, so I'm very justified in my actions. Okay, so he said some things to her, and he wasn't really mad at her. He was mad at me. And so all he did was run his mouth and say some things that he shouldn't have said. And they were not nice things. And I decided to commence the beating, if you will. And so the way this worked is that I was my backyard, our driveway kind of comes in and it circles down to where we parked our cars. And so I was kind of up here hanging out, and this is a pretty steep hill that ran down to our carport where we parked. My brother was standing at the lower end, and I was standing up on this hill a little bit, so I was already higher up than he was. And so I start to run at him, and I didn't have to jump because I was already, up higher. I was on higher ground than he was. So I jump, and it was like a perfect Jackie Chan drop kick straight to his chest. And so I ran, and I just, pow! My foot got him right in the chest. We both fell backwards, and then he was mad. He was upset. As always do. He runs inside, he tattletales, and we fought some more. And I probably should have stopped the story right there. But what's the point there? Is that my brother did something. He said something that was not kind and was foolish, and then he paid the price for that by his big brother. Okay, and so not condoning any of those things. All right, we were both wrong, but that's kind of how it played out. And that's kind of what this verse is talking about. All right, I thought about that when I was studying this. Is that the fool, his mouth invites a beating. Now, if I sat down and let TJ come up here and tell some stories, he could probably tell you some times where I said some things to him, and he came at me too. So, because my baby brother TJ ended up getting bigger than me, and he's bigger than me today. So we don't fight today though. So anyway, they get in trouble, right? A fool gets in trouble. And they get in trouble by their mouth. And their mouth reveals that they're a fool because they talk foolishly and they say things that they shouldn't. So they get in arguments, they get punished. And let's think about it, all right? Be honest with yourselves. Does your mouth get you in trouble? It's not so much you need to stop talking that way. You need to assess, am I foolish? Am I a fool? And what do you need to do? You need to get wisdom. You need to be wise. Okay? So not only does the fool get in trouble when they talk, but number two, and finally, is that when fools talk, they bring disaster. Okay? Look at verse number 7. A fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are the snare of his soul. Okay? So first thing here is that they ruin themselves. This word ruin, it can have the idea of like terror, or destruction, but ruin is a really good word here, and most of the new translations use this word. It really kind of gets the image of what this word's talking about. Usually, when this Hebrew word is used, it's used in relation to like a building. Okay, a building is built up, and then its ruin comes. So what happens? It's torn down. It falls over. It's just a pile of ruins. Okay, or rubble. And so the building has come to ruin, okay? A fool does this. A fool's mouth is his ruin, Okay, I was on the wrestling team in my high school. I wrestled for all 4 years, and there was one time we had a rule that if anybody on our team made a really big mistake, like maybe they left a piece of gear at another school, like after we wrestled, they left something behind, or they just did something that was just really a lack of discipline. Um, the whole team would pay the price for that. And so the way we would pay the price for that is we would do a lot of exercises, more than normal. And so wrestling team, that's all we did was run and wrestle each other and run and wrestle each other and run and wrestle each other. That was wrestling practice, all right? And there was some instruction in there too, but I mean, we just were all about trying to get in shape. And I can remember that our biggest wrestler, okay, the 275-pound weight class as a high school. That's the heavyweight class, and we had our heavyweight, who was actually a pretty short guy, and he was pretty large, all right? But he was in that weight class. He was a younger guy, and he did something. I think he left a piece of his equipment at another school after we wrestled, and the next day in practice, we had to pay the price, all of us. And so we had to do so many push-ups, so many jumping jacks, so many of this exercise, that exercise. I mean, it was like a whole regiment that we had to do. And we're working through this thing, and the whole team, we're just complaining, upset. And our coach had enough of it. He stopped us, and he said, listen, you know the rules. You're going to do what I've asked you to do. You're going to do these exercises. You're going to take your punishment as a team for not being disciplined. And so now you're going to start over what I've asked you to do. And so, you know, we got quiet real quick, all right? We quit complaining. We had to start over all those exercises that we had already done. And so really what we had, if you will, built up as far as our exercise that we had to do kind of got toppled down, and we had to start over. Why? Because we were running our mouth to our coach. And so this is what a fool does, right? This is just a small scale, okay? This is little exercises on a wrestling team. Okay, if anything, it helped us because we did more of them. Okay, but in life, this is not funny. All right, in life, this is a big deal. Okay, it's one thing to ruin your little workout regimen. All right, it's another thing to ruin your family because of your mouth. It's another thing to ruin your career because of your mouth. I mean, it's another thing to ruin your reputation because of your mouth and your testimony. And so, a fool's mouth, what does it do? It is his ruin. So look at this. He is knocking himself out. He is bringing all this trouble, all this strife, all of this punishment and beating, all of this ruin. He's bringing it on himself because he's a fool. And his mouth is revealing that, and he's paying the price, all right? So they ruin themselves. And then finally here, they trap themselves, okay? Look at the end of verse 7. Well, let's read all of it. A fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are the snare of his soul. Okay, the word snare is like an animal trap. Okay, it's something that's baited or lured, and the word actually comes from like a string that's tied into like a noose type of thing, or like a lasso that an animal would step into somehow, and it would catch it. And so that's kind of what this word snare is talking about. A fool's lips, they are the snare of his soul. Okay? I'll tell you one more little, illustration about this that makes me think of this word is that I was in elementary school, and we're on a bus route, riding a bus home, and me and a friend of mine had this brilliant idea. This was back in the, oh my goodness, probably the early to mid 90s. And we had this lunchbox that was it was a hard plastic, but it had like a soft cover around it. It was a rectangle lunchbox. And it had one of those long cords, like you could wear like a lady wears a purse, right? And so, we had our lunch boxes, going to lunch. Well, one of those ends you could clip off. And that's what we would do. So imagine you're coming down the aisle of the bus, and you got all the seats in the bus. And me and my friend, his name was Chris Teague, all right? And we hid, and we were in our seat kind of hiding. and we took that lunchbox and we set it in the aisle of the bus, and we unhooked one of those straps so that one strap was still connected to the lunchbox, and the other strap we pulled into the seat where we were, kind of hiding. And then we took one of our coats and just kind of threw it on top of our little trap there. And we'd get behind our seat, so we're kind of, tucked behind the seat, and we got the cord, and we're kind of down. You know what it's like when you're in the bus, and you can kind of look under the seat, and you can kind of see everybody's feet every which way. Well, that's what we were doing. And whenever the bus driver would stop and let somebody off, a kid would come walk by us. And so you can imagine, all right, as soon as their foot hit that, and their coat was there, so they couldn't see it. As soon as their foot would hit that lunchbox, we would pull that strap, and it would like kick their foot, and they would trip or they would fall, and we thought it was hilarious. And we did it over and over again. Some people we missed, some people didn't step on it, but every once in a while we would get somebody just right, and they would go tumbling down. And again, we're in elementary school doing this. Well, my bus driver did not think it was so funny, and we got into big time trouble with that with our principal. But what did we do? We set a trap for those people. A fool, his mouth is the trap. He sets a trap for himself. And so the fool's lips are the snare of his soul. So again, he's just not setting like a trap where he trips and falls down and people laugh at him. This is a trap for his soul. And so this man's life is ruined because of the trap and because of the ruin that he brings on himself. So hey, what does this guy do? When a fool talks, he brings disaster to himself. Okay? Now, do other people probably suffer at that? Probably. But this proverb is really hitting at the fool in particular. Hey, he or she gets in trouble. They bring disaster on themselves. Why? Because they're fools, and their words reveal that they are fools. And they get in trouble. They pay the price. They're arguing with people. They're getting punished. They're bringing ruin and destruction onto their life, and they're setting traps for their souls. And so this is not something that you need. This is not the type of person that you want to be. Okay? So, before we kind of end out here, just think about some things, right? I already asked you if your mouth gets you in trouble, but does your mouth and the way that you talk, does it set you back in life? Like the life that you're trying to build for yourself, maybe academically or athletically even, just whatever it is that you're into, does your mouth set you back and you bring ruin on your life, even as a teenager? Okay? You can ruin your life as a teenager. The decisions you make now are extremely important for the type of person that you're going to be. Don't be a fool. And, the last thing I'm going to leave you with is just, I've said it, but I want to end with it, is remember that this is not meant for you to say, you know what, yeah, I do get in trouble sometimes because of what I say. I say some foolish things. I speak in a foolish way. I need to stop doing that. The admonition is not to just stop trying to talk that way, but to really assess yourself. Am I a fool or am I wise? And that is the problem that needs to be addressed, okay? I don't want you to be a fool, okay? Because if you're not a fool and you're a wise person, then you're not going to struggle and worry about talking this way and messing yourself up in life. And so, again, it's the things that you say, it's the way you say it, it's who you say things to, when you say things. We all have to be careful because we all have gotten in trouble with our mouth before, okay? And so what I just want to encourage you is, hey, you don't need to be a fool, all right? So just assess yourself and think about it. Ask the Lord, Lord, is it more than just, oh, I slipped up and said some things I shouldn't have said in the wrong way or whatever, but is it deeper than that? God, am I a fool? Am I living life the wrong way? That's what a fool is, right? A wise person is skilled at living life the right way. A fool lives life the wrong way. So, hey, don't be a fool, all right? Don't be someone who's like just punching yourself to death and bringing trouble on yourself, okay? Be wise, speak wisely, and don't be a fool.